Okay, part two. Here we go. Writing the trig function given the graph. So again, there's our favorite equations, with the a, the b, the h, the k. So, okay. I think this is easier because you're just picking the numbers off from the graph, okay? But it's a little different, obviously. So the first thing you want to do when you're given a graph is figure out what the highest point is and what the lowest point is. So highest point here is 1. So I'm just going to make a little note. This is my high point. Okay? The lowest point it goes is 5. That's my lowest point. So first thing, just like when you're graphing it, I want to find my midline. Okay? So the nice thing with the midline is that the name tells you how to find it. It's in the middle. So how far is it from the highest point to the lowest point? The middle is where the midline is. So from 1 to 5, that is 6, right? Right, it's going to go 1 space and then 5 more, so 6 spaces away. So that means the midline is 3 spaces away from the top and the bottom. So all I'm going to do is look right here, and I'm going to go down 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. That's my midline. So that midline is my k. So I know k equals 3. Well, the amplitude is how far k is, or how far the highest point is from the midline. And we just did that. That was 1, 2, 3. So that means our amplitude is also 3. Okay, now we've got our k, we've got our a. We need to figure out the period. All right, let's do the period. So remember, period is how far until it repeats. So I am going to pick this point right here. I want to figure out how far. The main reason I'm picking it, one, it's a critical point, so it's where it hits the peak. Okay, and it's also at 0. So if I want to figure out how long the period is, I just need to figure out where the next critical peak is. It's right there. That's at 2 pi. 2 pi is the normal period, which means that b equals 1. We're almost done. All we have left is to figure out what h is. So this one's where it's tricky, all right? There are 2 possible ways you could write this. There's 2 answers, and if you look at the answers on the next page, it'll explain what those 2 answers are, but I'm going to tell you first. So this is asking for a cosine function. Remember, cosine starts at the peak, so it looks like this. Well, it's already at the peak. That's at the peak. So it's not shifted left or right at all. So one of my answers could not have any left or right shift. I just have to flip it upside down. And if that's the case, my answer is going to be negative a, so negative 3, cosine. B is just 1, so cosine x plus my k, plus 3. That's it. That is one of your possible answers. Okay, but like I said, this one's a little tricky because there's 2 possible answers, and that's the problem with these repeating functions is there's usually multiple possible answers. Maybe I want that to be my starting point. If that's my starting point, then that means it's supposed to be right here. So it got shifted over by pi. So it's mostly going to be just like this. But if that's my starting point, it's not flipped over. So it would be 3 cosine. And now it is shifted. It's shifted from 0 to pi. So minus pi. Oops. All right, computer died. It's like it's trying to tell me something because this is like the 5th time it's died tonight. Okay, so here was our original. It's plugged in now. So this was the original equation. Okay, well, that was the one where we just flipped it. And I said you could also shift it from here to here. Okay, and so we have 3 cosine because it's still the same amplitude, but not negative now. We shifted it over by pi, so minus pi and then plus 3. Yeah, it looks like a b, but whatever. Okay, and that's how you get it from a graph. Let me see if I can find another question to work on. Perfect. Nope, not there. Let's move it back a little bit. Boom. Let's do this one. And then I'm going to make another video that is just tangent. So I'm not going to mess with tangent at all in this video or the last video. Okay, so this is a sine function. So just for reference, remember, sine functions start here. They go up and down. That's a sine function. So first thing I want to do is I want to figure out what the midline is. Remember? So I'm going to label the highest and lowest point. Highest point is there at 1. Lowest point is there at 3. So the distance from here to here, from 1 to 3, is 4. Okay? So half of 4 is 2. So I'm just going to go down 2 spaces. So from here I'm going to go 1, 2. There's my midline. So that tells me my k equals -1. And again, the amplitude is how far these are, which we just figured out, is our a equals 2. All right, next is period. I want to figure out what the period is. So if it starts, and again, just like the last one, there's 2 possible ways you could do this. So, but I'm going to pick, let's see. And when you're picking your period, well, right there, it's crossing at the midline. So that's a good spot to pick. No, it's not, because it's hard to tell where it's crossing over here. So I'm going to pick this point right here. Okay, so that's at pi over 4. And I want to know how far until it gets to here. So pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, pi. That's another pi over 4. So that means from here to here, the distance is pi. Okay? So the distance from there to there is pi. This is 1/4 pi. This is pi and 1/4, or however you want to say it, or 5/4 pi, whatever. But again, if that's a fourth, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a whole. Okay? So that distance is pi. So again, 2 ways to do this. You can do the cheat method. How many times does this show up how many times can you repeat this in 2 pi? Well, 2, which means that 2 is going to be the number that is not b, but it's the number in the equation. Okay, so now let's do it the other way. Period equals 2 pi b, right? We know the period is pi, so pi equals 2 pi b. Divide both sides by 2 pi, we get b equals 1/2, and then when we plug it into our equation, it's going to flip, so it'll be 2. Okay. So we have the exact same situation as with the last one, right? This is the starting point, so we can flip it upside down because it's supposed to look like that. Or we can move it to, hold on, pi over 2. So, or we can use that. So there's 2 possible answers you could do. You can either flip it negative or you can move it over. I'm going to use the negative one because that's way easier, because then I don't have to worry about adding any h's. So we're going to make a negative. So we're going to say -2. It's asking for sine. Now we add in our b. Remember, it was 1/2, but we flip it, so it's 2, because it repeats 2 times in 2 pi. There is no h because we went the flip route, so this just becomes 2x. And then we add in our k, which is -1. And we have our equation. Okay? So like I said, it's not terrible. This section's kind of gross because there's lots of things, but you're just picking them out, and it's pretty easy to pick them out. So that's it for this video. I'm going to make one on tangents next. Yay!